31. But when they saw the tower in motion and approaching the fortress walls, the strange unfamiliar spectacle frightened them into sending envoys to ask Caesar for peace. The envoys said they were forced to the conclusion that the Romans had divine aid in their warlike operations, since they could move up apparatus of such height at such a speed. "We place ourselves and all we have at your disposal," they continued, "and make only one request. If in your clemency and kindness, of which we have often heard, you decide to spare us, do not deprive us of our arms. Almost all of our neighbors are hostile, being jealous of our bravery, and if we have to surrender our arms, we cannot defend ourselves against them. We would rather suffer any fate at your hands, if it must be so, than be tortured to death by men whom we are used to ruling." 32. To this appeal Caesar replied that he would spare the tribe, not because they deserved it, but because it was his habit to be merciful, provided they surrendered before the battering ram touched the wall, but that he could not consider any terms of surrender unless they handed over their arms. He would do for them what he had done for the Nervi. He would forbid their neighbors to molest in any way a people who had submitted to Rome. After making a report to their countrymen, the envoys came again to say that they were ready to obey. A large quantity of arms was thrown from the wall into the moat that lay in front of the fortress, the piles reaching nearly to the top of the wall and of the siege terrace, although it appeared afterwards that they had about a third of their arms hidden inside. They opened the gates and were at peace for that day. 33. In the evening Caesar ordered the Roman soldiers in the fortress to leave it and had the gates closed to prevent the men from doing any injury to the inhabitants during the night. But the enemy clearly had a preconcerted plan. Thinking that after their capitulation our pickets would either be withdrawn altogether or at any rate relax their vigilance, they equipped themselves with the arms that they had kept hidden, or with shields made of bark or wickerwork hastily covered with skins to meet the emergency, and soon after midnight their whole force suddenly made a sortie at the point where our fortifications appeared easiest to scale. The alarm was quickly given by fire signals in accordance with orders issued beforehand, and troops hastened up from the nearest redoubts. The Atuatuci struggled with the ferocity that was to be expected of brave men fighting a forlorn hope against an enemy who had the advantage of position and could hurl down missiles from an earthwork and towers, and knowing that courage was the one thing which could save them. About 4,000 were killed and the rest driven back into the fortress. Next day the gates, now undefended, were smashed open and the soldiers let in, and Caesar sold all the inhabitants of the place by auction in one lot. The purchasers reported that the number of persons included in the sale was 53,000. 34. About the same time Caesar was informed by Publius Crassus, whom he had sent with one legion against the Veneti and the other tribes on the Atlantic seaboard, the Venelli, Osismi, Coriosolites, Esuvi, Olerci, and Ridones, that all these had been subjected to Roman rule. 35. These various operations had brought about a state of peace throughout Gaul, and the natives were so much impressed by the accounts of the campaigns which reached them that the tribes living beyond the Rhine sent envoys to Caesar promising to give hostages and obey his commands. Being in a hurry to get away to northern Italy and Illyria, he told them to come again at the beginning of the following summer, and, after quartering the legions for the winter, some in the territories of the Carnutes, Andes, and Turoni, the rest among tribes living near the scene of that year's fighting, he set out for Italy. On the receipt of his dispatches at Rome, a public thanksgiving of 15 days was decreed to celebrate his achievements, a greater honor than had previously been granted to anyone.